Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we. So why not celebrate your pup's birthday with the ultimate party box? Check us out on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Party Pup Info, and let us make your pup's party or any celebration perfection.
Here you go. I'm minding my business.
How are you, man?
Good.
So we had a really interesting conversation, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think it's worth speaking about. So, and Seth, and we had a good discussion. So I'd like to hear from both of you. So Tony, you've seen a lot in the wrestling business, right?
Yes.
You've seen it all, right? You're an icon, but you've seen the real good of it, and you've seen the bad of it. Seth and I got in a conversation about Rita Chatterton, right, who was the first female referee in pro wrestling, which in itself is an incredible feat and will never be taken away from her. Along the line, Rita said that Mr. McMahon, Vince McMahon, lack of a better term, raped her, right, but did not want to have it reported. This show in particular, Jimmy and I, did not have the disagreement that this could have took place, but we did not agree with the way it was handled. One being Marion Mancini, who was a very close friend of Rita. And this is a moral question for both of you. And please, if you disagree, we'd like to hear your end. She informed Mario not to tell anybody about this said rape. And it went away for a very long time. And as we just discussed, Vince McMahon's been accused of sexual misconduct with Janelle Grant. That still seems to be in court. Our problem is, why speak about it, Mario Mancini, now when you didn't speak about it when it really mattered? And I'm asking both of you, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, Seth. I know you're a very important position, and I'm not trying to hang you out there. But I do think it's a moral question that should be answered. And Tony, obviously, you've been around it, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on it. So it's all you guys. Go ahead.
Well, the reason that I got with you and talked about my foot fetish, because in today's time, when something happens, everybody have a say-so to it. Kind of like the Bruiser Brody thing. There's people that was talking about the Bruiser Brody. That wasn't the important. I was talking to Seth about that earlier today. Because once the camera is on and the pocketbook open, everybody try to cash in on it. Even if they don't know nothing about it. I think that if there's something, if you really felt that something was wrong, you should speak on it now. But now that it's on television and it's a way of making money or to like, for example, kind of like Bill said, there's two types of wrestlers. Those that build themselves up on their own merits. And there's those that build themselves up by pulling somebody else down. And they're the only two wrestlers in the world. Those that build themselves up on their own merits, and then those that build themselves up by putting somebody else down. My mom said, if you don't have nothing good to say about nobody, say nothing at all. When the story hit, you probably got phone calls from out of nowhere. Just like when the Bruiser Brody death. Look at all the people running around talking about Bruiser Brody death. Wasn't even there. But they all had a say-so. Manny Fernando talking all type of crap about it. He was in Japan, South Africa. You even have Ric Flair talking about the Brody incident. So you think that this thing with Vince going to be any different? See, they know they're never going to work there again, but they feel, I get on the Monte fan, so it's going to make me popular. A lot of people will try to build themselves off the misery of others.
What I was by the way, Pharaoh was nice to get an opportunity to have a conversation with you, Mike.
Seth, real quick, can I get you? There you go.
I don't speak as loud as Tony does.
You're not as good looking either.
Yeah, that's not what. I'll leave it alone. So Pharaoh, I was saying it was a pleasure to get a chance to speak to you. And Monte, we did have a conversation about this on the phone, and what I would say in regards to anything that relates to something that could be trauma-inducing for another person, and a female, which is something that I don't walk in that person's skin. So I don't say lightly any conversation that relates to this. What I will do is speak about Rita Chatterton that I know from the time I was about 8 years old. I was friends with her daughter and she drive me to go roller skating. And my first knowledge of her being involved in pro wrestling was when I was a small child and I was in I was in Rita's mother's house, and I had no idea she was training for wrestling. I was 8, 9 years old, and she walked in and had been just beat up by Fabulous Moolah. And so she sat on the couch, drained of her energy, and the welts were starting black and blue as she sat there. And this was specifically during the rock and wrestling era. And so it wasn't as though I was intimately familiar with Fabulous Moolah because she was having a fight with Wendy Richter, and it was leading up to this battle on MTV, which we watched religiously. And I was a wrestling fan from the time cable got hooked up in upstate New York. And the first match I got to see involved the Wild Samoans. And being a child in upstate New York where no one looked like Afa or Sika, and to find out Captain Lou actually was from upstate New York. And by the way, Captain Lou was fired and hired more times than you. So the difference is Captain Lou would get fired and he would just show up to work the next day. So with that, but back to those experiences as a child with, it was well known in our neighborhood that Rita would have the British Bulldogs over, and there would be Andre the Giant would be in the neighborhood, and that wasn't an exaggeration. And so then I went, as I grew up and went away to college, I didn't. Your paths didn't cross. There was no social media in that era. When you went your different ways, you went your different ways. And so, what I would tell you is that I was the person who had reached out to Rita in the 2020s and said, "Hey, why don't you come on back and come to some of these conventions, come to some of these events, and see what it's all about?" And she was very resistant, didn't want anything to do with it. And with the help of her daughter, Tammy, we convinced her to come to one event. And as soon as she walked in, Tito Santana walked up to her and said, "Rita, it's great to see you," and gave her a big hug. And then she walked along, and so did Bushwhacker Luke, and so did lots of other people. And so it was I think cathartic. I think it was therapeutic. So if you're asking, why things weren't talked about for a duration, please, maybe it was out of respect for the individuals that were involved in those alleged situations. And all I will tell you is that, again, my background goes back to that. Growing up in good old Mechanicville, New York, where that's where Rita came out of, and so. The only reason she came back into the wrestling business was after that experience. And what I'll tell you guys, you just talked about Tony Khan, and I'll only speak about this because the other part of our conversation, Monte, and where it started, was I said, "Hey, Jim Cornette," I was just talking about that AEW had given a contract to Rita during this past few years. I can speak to it. Yes, I know it intimately, and I won't share all the details, but I was a guest down at Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Buffalo Bills when the other Josh Reed had 5 sacks against the Josh Reed who was the Buffalo Bills as their quarterback. So you can go do the math and find out what that was and what that was all about. But yeah, we were there. So there's crazy stuff. And when we get off the air, I'm going to talk to Tony about some Shane McMahon stuff, which will further reiterate why he's cool with whatever is going on. And all, so it's crazy.
Shane is not known for him. Shane is more into the martial arts than he is in wrestling. I mean, he really he works hard. He likes working out. He's really. I'm surprised that Shane didn't go into the UFC. I'm really shocked, but he's really into uh, combat.
I'm going to shift the dimension of the conversation and give you guys an idea that by having the museum in the arena, the MVP Arena in Albany, New York, used to be the Knickerbocker Arena, then the Pepsi Arena, then the Times Union Center. But by being in the arena, the guys who are in the business, both WWE and AEW, come through, and not just the wrestlers, but all of the people who work behind the scenes. And we had a cool experience that relates to Shane McMahon, because we always seem to run these same loops of Mick Foley's greatest matches. And so imagine we're in the museum during the day when WWE's in town, and all of their technicians and people who might coordinate stunts, and the ring manager, my buddy Nick Dawes, big shout out to Nick, and all of the people, the guys who work in the technical aspect, and they were talking about two wrestlers who just understood stunts at a level that anyone in the best of the best in Hollywood, they were better than, and they could just hit it the first time. Number one, Mick Foley, and number two, Shane McMahon.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And
Right.
think about it. What did you see Shane jump off of? What have you seen him do? And he would just look at it, say, yep, I could do that, and then have the athletic ability to do it.
He's a